Welcome to the Church Explained podcast, a conversation to grow your leadership and build your church. We're excited today. We've got a special guest, a guy called Sam Mooney, the whole way from Norwich, originally from Belfast, and we're going to find out a little bit about what he does around community transformation. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Nathan.
Hey, welcome to the podcast today, the Church Explained podcast. Exciting to have you here with us.
Yeah, and today we've got Sam Mooney with us. I've got a little bit of bio here, Sam, about you, so hopefully this is all correct. But you are hailing from Belfast.
Come on.
You had something to say about that,
It is an Irish takeover.
Well, I will talk about Belfast in a minute.
Yeah.
Let me come back to that.
Okay, let me go. Sam moved to England aged 19 to attend Bible college, where he obtained a biblical theology degree. Wow.
That's boasting, really, isn't it?
I know. And now he's currently general manager overseeing the day-to-day running of Soul Foundation. Sam is married, and together they have 3 teenage children. So it's great to have Sam with us.
Welcome, Sam. How are you, buddy?
How you doing?
So listen, just pick up a little bit about Belfast then, because obviously we're from the same neck of the woods, I think. And I'm sure we met in Belfast previously, haven't we?
We have, Dave, and in fact, I probably knew your brother Freddie better than I know you.
Yes, but he's not the better looking one, is he?
No, he's the older, more weather-beaten,
wiser, maybe.
Less educated, than yourself. Yeah, that's the one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry,
mate.
Fred, if you're watching.
I'll send you the money later, mate. Fantastic. Yeah,
only
so
red 50s.
Yeah. So hey, listen, it's great to have you here, and you're married to Dree. Is that's your wife's name?
That's right. So we met at bridal college. I think it was 12 weddings the year we got married in Mattersey. So it's one way of church growth: just marry and breathe them in.
Yeah, fantastic. And what Bible college was that?
Mattersey Hall.
Fantastic.
Which is no longer.
It's gone.
No.
It's changing and redeveloping. I think that's the thing behind it. So, Dree, I was just thinking of her name. Where's she from then?
It's a funny story. She's from Bury St Edmunds. When I first heard her speak at Bible college, I thought she was from Brisbane. I was really disappointed. I thought, great, get to the other end of the world, and I ended up in Bury St Edmunds. But anyway, so it's short for Andrea. That's what, but Dree is what she gets. Andrea only when she annoys me, which is not very often. But yeah.
Yeah, I
been
can
married
see
25 years.
I could see you were trying to be a bit of a hipster there, really calling her Dree. I thought it was going to be Deirdre or something. But anyway, Andrea's better.
Called her that as well. Yeah, her favourite mother-in-law calls her that.
Well, listen, we digress. Come on, let's start the podcast.
Yeah, let's get in.
Or we'll be here talking about Belfast all day. So come on, let's get the first question, Nathan.
Yeah, Sam, why don't you just tell us about your journey and how you ended up at Soul Church in Norwich?
Wow, how long is this podcast? Because that's a long one, mate. We came to Norwich and we left Mattersey in 96, and we came to Norwich very clearly, felt God call us here in 97. We were here, so we've done it's round 2 in Norwich for us. 97, we were here till 2002. David just left Norwich, so it was one Irishman out, another one in. And in fact, I followed in his wake, mopping up his mess.
Yeah.
And then through a series of events, we ended up at the other side of the country. And then about 6 years ago, Pastor John, I'd known John Norman from being in Norwich last time, and we worked together for another organisation. In fact, at the foundation now, Support Vision Rescue. And I was looking after their European office, as it were, and John was on the board. And he just chipping away at me. And really, I suppose when we left in 2002, we would never have left. Only a series of events really made it happen, as it did sometimes in church life. You know what it's like. So, moved back here. Now I've been on doing what I'm doing now 2 years. Moved back, relocated the family back up to Norfolk. And it's been a crazy 2 years. It feels like we've never left, but the 2 years is definitely... In the 18 that we weren't here, the 2 years have made up for it. Let's just say that.
Wow.
Fantastic. So, Sam, tell us a little bit about your role. You are the general manager of the Soul Foundation. Describe that for us, for our listeners today,
Okay,
or those watching.
Yeah, sorry, Dave. Soul Foundation itself is really the outreach arm of Soul Church. So everything that goes from beyond the walls of the church happens through the foundation. So at present, we work globally and locally. Globally, we're in South Africa with Hillsong Tembeleto out there, which is a school for differently abled kids, and we work with them. In the Philippines, we're with Philippine Outreach Center, and they're working mainly within the prisons in the Philippines and working with the families to support them with the prisoners. In India, as I said, we work with Vision Rescue. Vision Rescue themselves are educating kids in the slums of Mumbai. So we partner with them. The Name I Trust in Pakistan, which is really a church planting organization. We help support there. And then Hope for Justice, which you'll be familiar with in their fight against modern day slavery. So we partner with them. So that's what the foundation does globally. And I really just oversee that. And then locally, we got different initiatives. So we got Soul Streets that happens once a week on a Wednesday evening, where we partner with a local Anglican church. So during lockdown, it was the only restaurant opened in the UK where you didn't have to book, and there was definitely no track and trace, where we feed the homeless guys. So anything up to 140 meals a week, or on an evening would go out of there, Soul Prison is just about to kick off again within the prison. So we take Soul Church in once every other month for 2 services on a Sunday. And then on a Monday, we have a befriending group that really will go in, we'll sit with the guys in the prison. The chaplain's thing is that he wants us to normalize their prison experience. Well, I don't know how you do that, but we're going to try our best. So it's through maybe book clubs. Some guy's going to teach some of them how to play guitar. We got an artist going in to teach some guys how to paint. Obviously, you being from Belfast, Dave, you're good at painting curbstones. So, we might get you down here to do that. YMCA, we partner with a local YMCA. Again, we have a chaplain in there a couple of days a week. And then with the YMCA stuff, just really getting the first port of call with John Drake House there, where the guys have maybe come out of abusive relationships or in family situations that have been kicked out, and we're in there befriending them, mentoring them. Wellbeing Wednesday for us is a big thing. We have mental health support groups that go on a Wednesday up at Soul Church up at Mason Road, and so we have that going on. And then I suppose the thing that you see behind me, the monster that we created 18 months ago, is Soul Food. So during lockdown, we kicked that off. We had a little thing called Soul Pantry, where we would do maybe 2,000, 3,000 meals a month. And now out of here, we're doing 30,000 meals in excess a week. Wow. Where we've got volunteers coming in to pack. And we do that through the schools and through self-referrals of people, obviously through COVID, have maybe found it a bit tough to do life. And so we're supporting them with food boxes. On the back of that, then we started our Soul Restart program, which is really gone beyond giving people a handout to a hand up. So some of the folks that we're delivering food parcels to every week maybe have struggled with employment or debt. So we offer the CAP Money course. We partner with CAP through Soul Restart, through the CAP Money course, and then through the CAP Job Clubs as well. And apart from that, really, I don't do much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's loads that you're doing there, and some of it's partnership, but then other bits is you guys doing it, and it's great to see that as well, just in the background there of the team working and getting those meals out. Just thinking about like local churches and church leaders that are listening to this and just being passionate about community transformation. Is that something that you think every local church should be passionate about, and why that should be or why not?
So let me answer that in 2 parts. I thought about this morning while I was going through your questions again. Acts 10:38 says this: Jesus of Nazareth went about doing good and healing all that were oppressed by the devil. The first thing he says is he was doing good. And what we do behind us, whether it's through food, through the prison staff, whatever, it's all about doing good. And then the second thing is, I'm convinced that there's 3 things in life you always have. You've got to pay your taxes, there's death, and Jesus said that the poor you'll always have with you. So for me, community transformation, it's what the church is all about. The early church was part of it. You just got to read the epistles and see whether they're encouraging, whether to look after the widows, the orphans. So yeah, community transformation, I think, has to be at the heartbeat of church. And I think if you're not doing it, if I can be really honest, and as an Irishman, I don't think you have a problem with this, Dave. I question whether you are actually expressing Jesus if you're not involved in community transformation. It's what the church is all about.
Great.
Some strong words there.
Yeah.
So, Sam, let me just pick up a little bit. Obviously, for those who are listening, we're describing that behind you, you're in a warehouse. That's not your front lounge. So, just to make clear,
Definitely not.
Of course, anybody watching online. But just tell us a little bit about that story, because obviously to go from what you described as soul pantry, which is maybe a little bit like what a lot of churches have, like food banks. It was a little bit like that. So from that to what you've got now, maybe share with our listeners what that is behind you. I know it's a warehouse, but tell us a little bit about the journey of that so we can inspire leaders of what's possible.
Yeah, I think anything's possible when you just get a sense of what God's on. And God's definitely breathed on this. This would not be possible behind us if it hadn't had the touch of heaven on it. When lockdown happened, I said we were operating Soul Pantry. That was very simple. We picked up food from Pret a Manger, Greg's, the Tesco Expresses that would happen on an evening. And then we just looked at the situation. And what actually happened was a local business owner rang me and says, if you need to do something for food, I've got some vans you can have. And then that got us thinking. The council then rang us and said, will you be the northern hub for food redistribution for COVID? And we were like, oh, so there's something a bit bigger here needs to be done. And we went, yeah. We jumped into it, not really knowing what that would mean. We took over our main auditorium at the church, and we just racked it up with shelving. Some of it you can see behind us still. And just then started talking to different organizations that were maybe getting rid of food. Some of the schools were closing down because the kitchens weren't operating. And then it just started to spiral from there, really. Was it something we looked to do? No, I think, for us, it was definitely, the need was there. And so we just addressed the need. I mean, we have seen the miracle after miracle. We have 7 vans that a local business has given us to use, and he renews them every 6 months because he's a rental company. So I've never driven so many new cars that I haven't stolen. It's been great. The warehouse behind us is rent free.
Wow.
We've just seen God's hand upon it every step of the way. And what it's done for us, it's took the church outside the building. It's took church to the people. And we're reaching people now that we would never, ever have reached.
Yeah.
If you see our Heart for the House video, which is up on YouTube, there's the plug, soulchurch.com. But there's a story in there of a lady called Sarmite. And Sarmite was in an abusive relationship. I can share this because she shared it, so it's out there.
Sure.
And we went to a certain hostel that she was in. She declared herself homeless, and she was getting a food box every week. She then, in our boxes that you'll see, the guys just packing here. In those boxes, we put a church invite. There's an invite that goes into church. She started watching online. The appeal went out one Sunday, as it goes out at every service. She texts back to say those words, "I have decided." And we followed it up. My wife and I ended up had the privilege of baptizing her in the North Sea during the second lockdown. She then now comes back in and packs boxes. Her and her daughter are plugged into church. Her daughter got baptized in August. It's just that story. That's what it's done. And there's many more stories. There's stories of people that we can't share at the minute, but people getting a box on the doorstep, just introducing them to Jesus, because that's what it's all about. It's just not food. This is just a vehicle for us to bring Jesus to the city. It's been incredible. Absolutely incredible.
That's amazing. Such an amazing story, Sam. And you mentioned in there, like it was a need. But there are many needs in, probably in your city and like ours, there are many needs. So was there any intentionality? Was it just the open doors, the favor of God upon it that led you to pick, this is the need that we're going to address, this is the need that us as Soul Church are going to, kind of invest into?
We had, as a foundation, we had a board meeting just a month before the lockdown, and we decided that we weren't going to expand Soul Pantry.
Right.
Obviously, God had other ideas.
Yeah.
Because we were like, that's not where we see it. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit, things happened, but doors opened.
Yeah.
And I think it was, we had the chance then to either say, yeah, we'll go through it and we'll do what needs done, and we'll stand up and be counted, or we'll go, no, well, we've decided not to. So credit to our leaders that, we just made a decision not to, but it was like, yeah, we're going to address the need. So even though we made that decision, we're big enough to turn around and say, no, maybe we got it wrong. Let's go with it. And God clearly opened the doors.
Yeah. It's amazing.
And I think the thing is that there's always needs. And I think that's where wisdom comes in. And just seeing where you're at. And the other thing is comparison. Don't be, I'm no Matthew Barnett. He's got more hair than me and I have no chance of running any marathons. We ain't a dream centre. We're not set out to do that. That's not what we're doing. We're just addressing the needs of the city we're at, where we are in Norwich. In Chesterfield, it's going to be different up there. Maybe some of the needs that you guys have. And I think that's where wisdom comes in, just to say, yeah, this is where we're at. This is the needs. Let's scratch the itch where we're at.
Yeah, amazing.
And there's something there, isn't there, about church leadership in the sense of the flexibility of the church leaders. Because in one sense, Sam, as you said, they had just made the decision. And you could have said, well, we've made a decision, we're not going to do anything. But there's something about having a system and a structure that's agile as well, isn't there? I think that's useful. Just thinking of this idea of some of the challenges, what's been your biggest challenge? Like, let's say somebody's watching, they're thinking, yeah, we want to do community transformation. We hear the great stories, the fact that you guys are feeding over 30,000 people a week, did you say? 30,000 a week?
We do 30,000 meals. So we equate it to meals. It's how the government works. So to date, we've done 2.8 million meals. I looked at it this morning.
Wow.
2.8 million. I mean, that's phenomenal. Yeah. What's been your biggest challenge, though?
I think trying to stay in our lane and not trying to get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
Because you could always think, well, we're doing this, but we're going, because it's been such fast paced and it's been Groundhog Day, because every day in here is the same. It's not that you turn up and have a prayer meeting, or you turn up and nurse the youth, or made a mess in the hall and you got to clear them. It's the same thing every day. And some of our volunteers, in fact, I've got one sneaking behind me now. You might see her. She'll kill me for that. That's Esther. Esther's been here since day one.
Right.
And she comes in on her 2 days off every week. And the consistency of people coming in, we couldn't have done it without them. And that's been one of the biggest challenges, because as lockdown, first one came out of it, second one we've come out of it, things are getting back to normal, but there's still that need. And so it's not getting ahead of ourselves on one hand, but it's also keep on doing. And it's sometimes it's the hardest thing, just, because it's arduous work. It's, it's a bit different than making a cup of coffee or sitting down with a couple of folks and, like you would do, Dave, go through Leviticus, because you are that theologian. But it's the graft, it's the hard work of just doing it every day. And that's why stories like Psalmites, for instance, are just so pivotal to it, because that's what motivates you, just keeps you going.
Yeah, great stories there. And somebody's got to do Leviticus. Do you know what I mean? Some people don't have the acumen to touch that, but like, if it falls on my plate, I'll have to do it, really. I think
it's got you written all over it there.
Yeah.
Just thinking about your volunteers, Sam, and aside from Leviticus, just thinking about your volunteers, how have you, so you talk about it, it's like the daily grind, it's the same, and you mentioned the stories, but how do you keep people focused on the why, focused on here's what this is about. In that whole, like, today you're going to pack the boxes and it's going to be the same. So how have you managed to do that?
It's continual encouragement, continual stories. We have good news stories. We'll share with the team on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes up to 40 volunteers are in here a week.
Yeah.
Some of them are regular. Some come in once and we never see them again. Some come in once and we're glad not to see them again. No, that's the bit that needs cut out, doesn't it? We edit that bit out. But yeah, I think it's that. It's just motivating. It's the why is, it's the salvation of our city.
Yeah.
It is love in action. We are reaching people. And it's keeping the focus of people and not boxes. And I've never seen so many chickpeas in all my life. But it's getting past the tins. It's getting past the food to actually what the box is representing.
I think that's so important, even for somebody who's thinking about this and you're working with volunteers. I think that's just a practical...
Keep the why.
Yeah, keep the why and tell the stories, I think is important. What are some of the other practical steps that leaders could take or should take if they want to try and start something similar?
I think you start small. We never expected to grow this. When we didn't grow it, it just happened. It's been boom for us. It's evolved.
Yeah.
Start small and just do what you can do. We can all do something. We can't do it all, but we can do something. And I think if we're just doing something, and you don't have to look too far.
Yeah.
I think what we've seen with the food side of what we're doing here, especially since we're talking about here today, is that I think this need has always been there. It's just that COVID has exposed it.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things as well is perception. Because you can rock up to a house that looks, it's a nice detached 4-bedroom house, and you can look and you can see a couple of nice cars in the drive, and you can think, well, why do they need a food box? Well, the chances are maybe they're maxed out on the credit cards. One of them's maybe lost their job. They're struggling to pay the repayments on the 2 nice cars in the drive. And that's why they need a food box. And so perception, practically, everything is not as it seems.
Yeah.
Or you can go to the house where the gates are falling apart and the grass, you've got to, get a tractor in just to get to the front door, and there's all sorts of muck and mess on the road and stuff. But you know what? Those people need a box just the same as the people in the big house.
Yeah.
And so practically, perception, you've got to get past that part of actually what you see isn't always the real story and what's going on behind the doors.
Yeah, I think that's great. That sort of sense of starting small, but actually having the right perception where there's no judgment. I like that. There's a real sense where there's no judgment. Because we don't really know what's happening in people's lives, and for the fact that you're able to help people in all those situations is remarkable, really. Yeah. And
I think some of the folks that we've had in to help, some of the volunteers, it's been as good for some guys coming in here to help, and that's helped them. Some maybe the mental health hasn't been too great. I think of a couple of guys in particular, but actually coming in here, giving them a bit of routine has actually helped them as well. So it's done good for the people in here, and it has clearly done good for the city in which we live.
Yeah, and just thinking of the city there for a second before we sort of wrap up today, what sort of impact do you think it's had for you guys as a local church in your city doing something like this? Has there been some feedback you've got from those who are in authority?
Yeah, there has. I think the biggest thing has been credibility.
Okay, brilliant.
And I don't think we can actually, we can't put that into bums on seats. Really, I think the biggest thing has been credibility, because the church has actually stood up and said, we will take the lead. And we've seen that across the country. We've had some monies granted to us from an organisation, Love Your Neighbour. Based out of HTB, and that has come through from the government down. And I think it's because the church has actually stood up and said, you know what, we're going to take the lead. So credibility, we've seen people come to faith, we've seen people join church, which is great. But I think just lifting the credibility that these guys aren't all just crazy that meet in a warehouse and sing and dance and the flashy lights and all the rest of it. That's great, but the church is actually doing what it says it's always meant to be doing.
That's amazing. We'd love to finish by just asking you, Sam, any advice for leaders today, before we wrap this up?
Any advice? I'd love any advice. I'll take it gladly. Thank you.
We can give you advice if that helps, but
I think comparison's a killer in any form of ministry. Any ministry we do, anything involved in comparison's a killer. Comparison's a thief. So I think you got to stay true to what God's called you to, what God wants to do in your city. Don't be a cheap replica, be the original you. And if we at Soul Church, Soul Foundation can in any way help inspire any of the church, any of the guys that may be listening, watching this podcast, please get in touch. I'll chuck up my email address, sam.mooney@soulchurch.com. Please get in touch. If we can help, we'd love to. And we'd also, if you've got things that you could show us, please, because we have not got all the answers.
It's great advice, that, isn't it? Fantastic.
We
can, put that out there to leaders and stuff. Sam, just to say to you guys, really a big well done for all the work you've done and taking that step to be a voice in your city, because actually it takes courage. I know we talk about this as if it's just happens, but it does take courage and it takes hard work. So well done to you, mate, for all that you've been doing.
Amazing.
You don't have to send me that money now. That's gone back.
Brilliant. Well, it's been great to have you on, Sam, and it's been fun as well, which has been amazing. And like you said, people can get in touch with you. sam.mooney@soulchurch.com. Is that right?
That's the one. Yeah.
That's the one. Well,
yeah,
it's been.
Please do.
That's amazing. That's the one. Well, it's been great to be together on the Church Explained podcast, and it's been great to have Sam with us. For anyone who's tuning in, please rate, review, subscribe wherever you're consuming this content. Don't forget we have all of the Icon Open resources, which you'll find at icon.church/open. And we look forward to seeing you next time on the Church Explained podcast.